Hi, Room 15. It is Thursday, May 21st, 2020. So we are going to start a new unit today called fractions. So we sort of talked about this in Number Corner in April, but we're going to explore fractions a lot more in the next few days. So today we're going to focus on partitioning circles and rectangles. So our learning targets are we can partition circles and rectangles into equal parts, and we will discuss what that word partition means in the next slide. And we can describe equal parts as halves. So you will need some materials today for one part of our lesson. So the materials you will need are a blank piece of white paper. Your paper can have writing on the back, but you just need one side that is blank. And usually the correct size for the paper is 8.5 by 11 inches, which is like regular paper that we would use to write on something. And then we're going to use that paper to practice partitioning. You'll also need a pencil and then crayons or colored pencils. If you don't have a pencil, you can just use a black crayon or a black colored pencil. So if you need to, you can pause your video and go grab those materials and then unpause when you are done. Okay, so partition what? So this word means to divide or break one whole shape into equal parts. Partition. To divide or break one whole shape into equal parts. Kind of like this. So here we have a rectangle, a square, and a circle, and we drew lines to break them into equal parts. So we just partitioned our shapes. So look at these shapes again. We have a rectangle, a square, and a circle. We can draw lines to partition or divide them into equal parts. You can also call equal parts equal shares, which is the word that you'll be seeing in your assignment today. But I'll be using the words equal parts because that's the word that we've been using to describe when we divide shapes. So here I drew lines, and as you can see, I took the whole shape, which was a rectangle, a square, and a circle, and then we drew lines to create equal parts or equal shares. So we've learned what halves, thirds, and fourths mean, but let's review. So halves equals 2 equal parts. So if I have this rectangle, I can draw a line horizontally to create 2 equal parts. You can also draw lines vertically or diagonally, but here I'm just going to use horizontal lines. Thirds means 3 equal parts. So I have the same shape, which is a rectangle, but this time I'm going to use vertical lines to create 3 equal parts. You can also use horizontal lines, but here I'm using vertical lines. And then the last is fourths. So here you can see that I used a vertical and horizontal line to create 4 equal parts, but you can also use horizontal lines, all horizontal lines, or all vertical lines. But here I'm using a combination of both. And make sure that if you're using halves, it's always 2 equal parts, meaning each part is the same shape. Thirds, there's always 3 equal parts. So all 3 parts are the same size and shape. And then same with fourths. You want to make sure you have 4 equal parts and they're all the same size and shape. So now you need to grab your piece of paper and I want you to think, what shape is the paper? It is a rectangle. You're right. So now you're going to take your paper and you're going to choose one way to fold your paper in half. Remember, half means 2 equal parts. And when you're folding your paper, you want to make sure that the edges and those corners match up before you make that fold. If the edges and the corners are not matched up, your parts will not be equal. So you want to make sure that when you're folding it, any way you're folding it to create 2 parts or halves, then you need to make sure that those corners and those edges are lined up to make sure that they're equal. So now, you could have folded your paper like this. So here, as you can see, I'm taking my paper, lining those edges and corners. That's one way to create halves. And then I have another piece of paper. I'm going to show you another way. This is kind of like hamburger and hot dog style. So either of these work. And then there's one more way I'm going to show you after this. So that's like hot dog style. So as you can see, both examples have 2 equal parts or halves. So this way, I'm actually not going to fold it. And the reason why is because if I were to fold it, so I'm going to draw a line. So as you can see, I'm going to draw a diagonal line. But if I were to fold it diagonally, the parts would not have been equal. So that's why I'm just drawing the lines. Okay? If I had a square and all sides were equal, I could fold it diagonally, but since it's a rectangle, those opposite corners would not have matched up. So that's why I drew my line. Okay? So these are the different ways that you could have partitioned the piece of paper or the rectangle differently. And it doesn't really matter which way you chose, as long as you have one of these examples and that your paper shows halves or 2 equal parts, not 3 or thirds or not fourth or fourths, okay? Remember, halves means 2 equal parts, or that other word, shares, 2 equal shares. Now, you're going to use your pencil to draw a line where you folded your paper. Then you're going to use your crayons or colored pencils to shade in 1/2. And then you also want to write 1/2. So it should look like this. So see, we have a black crayon here. You don't have to use a pencil. You can use a crayon. And you want to only shade in 1/2. And then make sure you draw that line where you folded it. Or if you did the diagonal way, just draw your line with a dark crayon. And then you're going to label it 1/2, just like the picture. So if you need to pause your video, you can go ahead and pause it now to finish that. Okay, so your paper, your rectangle, should be partitioned into halves. Woohoo! So now what you're going to do is you're just going to look at each part of your rectangle, and each part is 1/2. So 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole. Remember, we started with 1 whole paper, and then we partitioned or divided it into halves, which is 2 equal parts. So 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole. Now, we left one part blank or white. So we're going to call that part that is not shaded the unshaded part. Because remember, that word un right here, this prefix, meaning a part of a word that goes at the beginning, means not. So un means not, so that word means not shaded or unshaded. Okay? Now, if we shaded both halves, which you can do now, and you're going to also label it 1/2. So go ahead and pause your video. You can shade in that other part of your rectangle. You can use the same color. And then you're going to label it with a black crayon or a pencil, 1/2, just like you did the other side. So go ahead and pause your video now and do that. Okay, unpause. So you have just colored your other half, or the unshaded part, and you labeled it 1/2. And it should look like this. Sorry, my friends, this yellow one, I made a mistake, so I had to cross it off. So we just shaded both halves. So we shaded 1/2, and then we shaded another half, which we call this 2 halves. So if we shaded both halves, then that is called 2 halves. And then 2 halves equals 1 whole, because we have a whole piece of paper. And we have not cut it up into little pieces quite yet. Okay? So now I'm going to partition a circle. I'm going to do the same exact thing, except for this time I'm going to use a different shape, and I'm going to be using a circle. So now I have my circle, and as you can see, just like the piece of paper, this is one whole, because it's a whole shape. Okay, we don't have any parts yet. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half. Okay. Oh, sorry, it's getting a little blurry. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw a line down the middle where that fold is. Okay, so now I want you to see that no matter which direction I turn, so now I have 2 halves, right? I have 1/2 and then 1/2. So I have halves. So I want you to look. No matter which way I turn my circle, see how I'm rotating it? The halves never change. Notice that? So even if I did a horizontal line, still the same halves, right? If I flip it and I use a vertical line, still the same shape and halves. If I kind of did a diagonal, like corner to corner, it's still the same thing. And that's because a circle, it's round, unlike the pieces of paper. So no matter which way you turn it, it's always halves, okay? And now, if you remember, I'm gonna go ahead and shade in 1/2. Now, I want you to think, how can you now describe the way my circle looks? Because before I had, without that line, I had a hole. I drew the line and now I have halves, but now that I've shaded it, how can you describe the circle? So think of some different ways that you could have described the circle. So you could describe that 1/2 is shaded, right? And then 1/2 is, you remember that word that we use for the white part that's not shaded? All right, it is unshaded. If you thought unshaded, you are correct, okay? So half of this circle is shaded, half of it is unshaded, okay? And now if you're using those fractions like we've used before, this is how you write 1/2. And then down here, 1/2. Because it's one part out of two total parts shaded, one part out of two total parts unshaded, okay? So now I'm gonna show you another example of shapes that are partitioned. So take a look at these shapes. Now they are partitioned, but I want you to decide if the shapes are equal or unequal. So take a look at shape A. That is a rectangle. It has two parts, so that's halves, and 1/2 is shaded. But are these equal? The answer to that is yes. So I'm going to circle it because this shows equal halves. Now look at B. Do those halves look equal? And the answer to that is no, these are not equal. Even though they show two parts, the circle has two parts and one is shaded. Those are not equal parts or equal shares because the shaded part, which is right here, is way smaller than the unshaded part. Okay, so that is a no. Look at shape C, the square. Now this is definitely not equal halves, and the reason why is because there are 3 parts. So this is actually showing thirds. So that's why this is not equal halves. And then shape D, is that showing equal halves? The answer to that is yes, because the shape, each part is equal, right? And then we have 1/2 shaded, okay? Now, look at shape E. Is that square? It is a square. It looks like a diamond, but it's actually a square. Is that shape showing equal halves? The answer to that is yes, because we have 2 parts, 1, 2, and then they're equal, okay? Because they're the same size and same shape. And then shape F, that's a circle with halves. Is it equal? The answer is yes, because there's 2 equal parts. Okay, it's right down that down the middle of the circle, which is why it is equal. Okay. Now I'm going to show you what you're going to be doing today. This is just an example, not the exact problems, okay? But I want you to look at them. So take a look at number 1. Circle the shapes that have 2 equal shares with 1 share shaded. So remember, shares, this word shares just means parts. So shares is the same word as parts. So when you see that, it basically means 2 equal parts or 2 equal shares. Same thing, okay? So circle the shapes that have 2 equal shares or parts with 1 share shaded. So they all show 1 share shaded, but are they equal? Okay, so let's go through. I'm going to circle this one because this is the 2 equal shares are equal and 1 is shaded. I'm going to cross it, or you know what? I'm not going to cross it up. I'm just going to leave it blank, okay? Because it's not equal. This is also equal because I see that's right down the middle and they look the same size and shape. And then this is also equal because it's the same size and shape and 1 is shaded, okay? Number 2, shade 1/2 of the equal shapes that are split into 2 equal shares. 1 has been done for you. So now, the shapes in question 2, they are already partitioned for us, but we are only going to shade in the ones that show 2 equal parts or shares, which is this direction right here. We want it to show 2 equal shares, and then we have to shade in 1/2. So there's sort of 2 steps to this, all right? So I am not going to shade this one. I'm actually just going to cross that off because that's not equal. Same with this. These are not equal. This shape right here, I am not going to shade that because that's not 2 equal shares. That actually shows 3 equal shares or thirds. This shape right here, I am going to shade in 1/2 because they're equal. Same with this next shape. 2 equal halves or halves, and then 1 is going to be shaded. Same with this shape because they're equal. This shape, they're equal. And then this last circle, it sort of looks equal, but it's actually not equal, so I'm not going to shade that, okay? So I'm actually just going to leave these blank because it didn't say to cross them off, okay? Now, question 3. Partition the shapes to show halves. Remember, halves means 2 equal, oops, sorry, not letting me write, parts. Okay? And then you're going to shade 1/2 of each. So I'm going to use my pencil tool, and I'm just going to try my best to make it equal. And then I'm going to shade in 1 of the halves, okay? This rectangle, I could use a vertical line, or you can use a horizontal line. Just try your best to make it equal, and then you need to shade in 1/2, okay? This rectangle, remember, there's like 3 ways you could do this. You could do a horizontal line, you could use a vertical line, or you could use that diagonal. I'm going to keep that diagonal and just try your best. Go corner to corner and then shade that in. This circle, I'm going to go horizontal. This circle, I'm going to go vertical, and then I'll shade them both at the same time. Oops. Uh-oh. Bring that up. Okay, and then this rectangle, I will go horizontally, just using your best eyes to make sure that each part is equal. This thin rectangle, I'm going to go vertically, whoop, and then make sure you shade in 1/2. And then here, I'm going to go diagonally. We've got all 3 types of lines down here in this last row. Okay. Now, let's take a look at what you're going to be doing today on Seesaw. So you're going to be looking for the lesson that is called, partition circles and rectangles into equal parts. So the directions are, you just need to read the directions on the left and then click check. So here it says directions for question 1. Use a pen or pencil tool to circle the shapes that show 2 equal parts. Remember, you want to make sure that it's 2 parts that are equal. Same size, same shape. And remember right here, shares means parts. Okay, that word shares. Question 2. Shade one half of the shapes that are split into 2 equal shares or equal parts. One has been done for you. Same exact thing. You want to make sure that it's 2 parts, the parts are equal, and then shade in one of them. Okay, one half. Question 3, same exact thing. You need to partition the shapes to show halves or 2 equal parts. After you partition the shapes using the pencil or pen tool, you can use the highlighter to fill it in. So let me do this one for you. So the circle, just using your best judgment, try to make it equal, and then use that highlight tool and shade in one half. All right? All right, my friends, then click check when you are done.